Coach Amina, I'm going to bring Simi to your house. She's so interested in.
No problem. No problem.
Don't worry.
My daughter will most likely make pasta. I look
Uh,
forward to that.
it's all right, ma. All right. So welcome everyone. Auntie Tokumbo, welcome. Thank you for joining in early. We are glad
Thank
to
you
have you here.
for you are the best. We love you.
Yes, ma. So my name is Odunaya Adegbaju Super Ho, and I'm excited that we are here today for a powerful conversation unpacking the emotional baggage in parenting. And we started this series last week, and it was an interesting one. We discussed breaking free from the guilt of womanhood. So if you know you missed last week's session, you can catch replay on YouTube. Is there. And then, like I said, we have a powerful guest in our midst today. She's so beautiful. And before we started recording, we had some backstage conversation here and there.
Oh,
So we are glad to have you here, Ma. Thank you very, very much. So I would quickly like to share or read out the bio of our guest speaker for today. So who is Coach Hamina Yunus Ali? Let's meet her. Coach Hamina Yunus Ali is an accomplished professional with a diverse set of skills and an unwavering commitment to helping others. She has a degree in family therapy, expertise in performance consulting, and a proficiency in neuro-linguistic programming, that's NLP. She is hard at assisting individuals in overcoming childhood traumas, managing grief, and living life to the fullest. Coach Amina is highly regarded master practitioner and member of the management board at the Institute of Family System Engineering and Development, as well as a fellow of the Institute Professional Coaching and Mentoring. Additionally, she's a distinguished mediator certified by the International Mediation Campus in Germany with a specialization in family mediation. Her expertise in revolving family drama is unparalleled. Yeah, Coach Amina is also an emotions coaching specialist from the Gottman Institute in Canada. I expect the emojis to be flying up and down with all these things that I'm reading. This thing is huge. And an intermediate level practitioner of tapping mediation. And our expertise in these areas allows her to help individuals achieve inner peace and personal growth efficiently. If your hands are not so busy, just on the chat box, yeah, use the emoji. Let's be getting the emojis to appreciate our global coach. Coach Amina, I love you. She's the
thank
one,
you. Thank you so much.
she's our guest speaker for today. And I know that it's going to be an interesting time um with her today. So, but before I start asking Coach Amina questions, I want us to quickly go through a quick self-assessment. It's just a yes or no. The questions are not so many, just yes or no, yes or no. So the first question says, do you sometimes overreact emotionally when your child makes a mistake, even when it's small? That's question one, yes or no. Question two, do you find it hard to express love, praise, or affection because it feels uncomfortable or unnatural? That's question two, yes or no. Question three, Do you struggle with trusting your child's decision, fearing they will disappoint or betray you? Yes or no? Question 4. When your child is upset, do you find yourself minimizing their feelings instead of validating them? A lot of us are guilty here. The next question. Do you feel triggered by your child's behavior, reacting in ways you later regret? Yes or no? Do you avoid having deep conversations with your child because you never had them growing up? Yes or no? Do you sometimes feel resentful or emotionally drained by your child's needs? Yes or no? Do you hear your parents' voice in your head when you discipline? Baba Odun your carry. Even if you don't want to parent that way. Yes or no? Do you struggle with apologizing to your child even when you know you are wrong? Yes or no? The last question for today. Do you fear that if you don't parent perfectly, your child will experience the same pain you did? So now that we are done with the question, how many yeses do you have? Let's count the yeses. Let me. You're welcome, Abisola. Let's
Thank you.
drop our. All right. Let's drop our score in the chat box. Oh, we have 7. 7 yes. Grace, thank you for sharing. Balikis, how many years? Oh, Auntie Tokumbo has 8 yeses. Okay. Balikis Bello, how many yeses did you have? I know Abisola joined yes. Oh, we have a lot of the questions are plenty. They are so plenty. All right, so okay, 6 years. So can you see that you're not alone? A lot of us have yes, and that is what is common to most of us parents, although not all parents, is common to most of us. And but the good news is we have Coach Amina here that will help us dissect that assessment that we just took right now. And I'm going to start with you, Coach Amina, to ask, based on the results we have just seen, what can you say is emotional baggage? And how does emotional baggage show up in parenting?
Okay, so I think the answer answers itself, and the question answers itself. Emotion, baggage, the inability for us to identify, understand, and regulate our emotions are actually what we will, on the surface describe as emotional baggage. But so that's what we'll call emotional dysfunction or dysregulation, basically. The baggage part of it is to say that you're having to carry this, all this fear of not being inadequate, fear of emotional tantrums, or actually emotional tantrums, the consistent exposure triggers of resentment and anger and just irritability here and there, right? Are actually what the baggage is about. So imagine somebody who is going to the market. I don't know, I think most of us here are women. So you've got to go to the market and you already have a list. But part of because you're afraid that you may forget, you now carry samples of everything that you have instead of just having the list and taking it to the market. Because you are very specific about the type, the ingredients, and the condiments and whatever, you now carry every sample that you already have existing at home into your bag. So it's like you're carrying the ingredients that you want to go and buy to the market and then coming back. It's the ones that you had before, as well as the ones you just bought. How heavy would your bag be? How heavy would your shopping cart be? What we want to understand is that emotional baggage is not specific to any type of person or people. It has no minder or tribe or age or gender or anything like that. Each and every one of us, we already have our baggages. And the reason we do is this: every single human being, except those who, by virtue of some neurological disorder, every single human have emotions. We are born with emotions. Why would you know a child is born or a child is healthy? Is when that child begins to cry, isn't it? But the one thing that we are not born with, that emotion, is with regulation. No one in this world is born with the ability to regulate the emotion. The fact that we learn how to regulate our emotions based on the people who are either our parents or caregivers are the reason we have the emotional baggage that we have. Because just like we may not have been aware of this credence to emotions. Our parents were not aware, neither were their own parents, neither were their own parents and our forefathers that way. We just knew that, okay, so when we cry, people either begged us or dismissed us. When we hurt, people either loved us or neglected us. When we are angry, they either asked us to get over it or even get punished for it. And those are the baggages that we carry into our parenting. I'll stop there for now.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing. Hmm. That's deep. That's a whole lot. So we all have baggages, but the thing is, what is inside our bag?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. What's inside the bag that you're carrying?
Hmm. Okay, so we took an assessment earlier on, a self-assessment for parents.
Yeah.
Some people had 7, some people had 6, and like that. Some of us joined late, so we
Mm.
missed the assessment, but we can catch replay once we are done. So, how do you relate the score with what is in the bag, the emotional bag?
Okay. So if I as a therapist, one of the things that I would often measure is the metrics. Anyone above 5 is significant. It means your baggage is plenty, right? Just to, and this is not to make you scared. It is to make you understand that, number one, you are not alone. Number two, an awareness is the beginning of healing and transformation. The more we continue to pretend like, oh, you know what, this is the way we were prevented and we survived, the more we will continue to get stuck in that cycle of emotional baggage. So we have our own baggage. Our parents had theirs. Our children are likely going to have their own baggage if we continue this way. And I always like to say this, in any parenting role that I have. We parent the way we were parented until we consciously decide to do otherwise. No matter your good intention, you know that when you were young, your parents accused you for taking the meat in the pot. Even though it was daddy that went to the pot and said, Obey, you don't, this soup is very nice. Let me take one when mommy was not there. And you try to tell mommy, I didn't do it. This is not my fault. But mommy insisted that it is you. You are the one that has sweet tooth. You are the one that continues to do things that makes me angry. You know that that was what you experienced. But unconsciously, you grew into this parent who is also doing the same thing. Just because your child behaves like you when you were a child, you now unconsciously begin to accuse that child like, you're too playful. You don't read your books, this and this. Again, consent is the concept is this. You would you will continue to parent the way you were parented until and unless you consciously choose to do differently. And the consciousness of you doing differently comes with you identifying this baggage. So as following how Super was asking the questions, the most interesting ones that I think we all have in common is that emotion. You've promised yourself that when you're coming back from work, you are not going to get angry if the dishes are unwashed, if the living room is untidy, and all that.
Yeah.
You told yourself that, quite okay. But then you walk in and then you meet one of your children, and your bells just go off from 0 to 300. That inability to contain or to keep your commitment to maintaining your calm comes from a trigger that was also present in your childhood. How many times were you told as a child that if you don't stop crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about? Because you were not conditioned or prepared to accept that a child whining or a teenager throwing tantrums or even a teenager being disrespectful is part of natural development of emotions. I am trying really hard not to get into the technical aspects of how the brain conditions us for the preparation of emotions in this space. I used to be like that. Like I'll look at my 6-month-old and I'll like, why are you just crying? You know, just show me or say something that will let me know that this is what you want. But this is the rationality of it. You know that a 6-month-old cannot talk yet, or at least they cannot verbalize their needs, but you're expecting. It's also the same way that we will think that a 16-year-old can verbalize their emotional capacities, but they do not have the vocabulary for it yet. And this is the way it has been from our ancestors up until now, and until we learn and choose to do differently, to continue to be that way. And that is the baggage that we are talking about. Another thing that I noticed that was also a challenge was validation, validating emotions for our children. When was the last time your own emotions was even validated? Like you came back from work and you say, God, I'm so tired. And then the next thing, somebody that loves you beside you says, hey, yeah, I'm so sorry. How are you? Without comparing their tiredness to your own tiredness. Like, if you know the kind of work I did today at work, or the kind of traffic that I faced, those are the ways we invalidate emotions unconsciously as adults. But when you think about it in parenting, it becomes a norm. Like, you know what? They'll get over it. And they do get over it, but they don't get past it. It becomes a culture where emotions are just constantly dismissed. Your child comes back home and says, Mommy, 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 I want to tell you about what happened in Spain. You're like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I need to prepare dinner. Or I need to send a report for work that just came in while I was driving. Because it is the way we have been conditioned to see and accept emotions in that place. The next one, and I do not take time, is resentment. You know, that thing that you just wonder, like, why can't they just figure it out? Why can't they just make the right decisions? Why can't they just build resentment? Because it is also a stressful experience from our childhood. The number of times we've been told that if you can if you can eat, you can walk as a child is something that some of us carried into adulthood. So we have learned to manage. We have learned to continuously economize. We have learned to do certain things. But we learned this the root way of being emotionally beaten into it, not viscerally thought how to do it. Have you taken your child down to say, okay, so this is the economics of managing sugar in the house? I have bought this sugar cubes for 1 month. It is meant to last each member of this family for an entire month. However, if we are to exhaust it before 1 month, it means that I'll have to go into your savings to get this done. And they are like, mommy, well, because you want, I'm like, mommy, why are you doing that? Well, if you're going to choose to use 5 cubes of sugar to drink just 1 cup of tea, then it means that you are old enough to recognize what it means to fuel yourself and then the entire family. Those conversations, as opposed to if you touch that sugar, if you do this, if you do that, threatening, they have a way of mitigating growth. So when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about it in terms of, okay, so there's a budget for a month. If that budget is exhausted before the month runs out, then somebody has to pay. Now, the person that has to pay is the one that uses the most. And that begins to put you into your consciousness that you have to begin to manage finances and economize. But what we were taught was the threats. And some of us struggled, even as adults, to begin to become self-disciplined without being threatened. So we look for accountability partners. We look for people that would force us to pay attention to how we are spending until we do better. And the next thing that I notice is, listening to your parents' voice. Our parents' voice become our inner voice. We probably heard that like a dozen times, if not more, in our journey to parenting. The parent's voice becomes the child's inner voice. And sometimes, how particularly these days we hear that, oh, this generation, they are not resilient, they are whiny, they are this, they are that. It all comes back to, is it not because we are trying to do it better than our parents? But the thing is this, yes, we may have wanted to do it better than our parents, but did we adopt a better methodology? Or did we just superimpose a different methodology that may not even speak to our culture, our values, our vision for parenting in the first instance? So when you're punishing your child and you're punishing like your father did you, I'm asking you to ask yourself, is it the same crime? Are you the same people? And when you are disciplining that child for doing certain things just because you did it as a child, are the results the same? At the times, even the same thing, right? Because if we do not move away from, oh, this is the way our parents did it, we'll continue to breed the generation of children who just survive but do not thrive. And for a child to thrive, they need three things. They need to be well adjusted. Well adjusted, meaning that they are able to pay attention to what it means to be resilient. They're able to adapt and adjust efficiently in whatever space that they find themselves. The second thing is they need to be emotionally stable. Emotionally stable, meaning that they are in that space where they can identify, understand, regulate their emotions, and also do the same for people who are close to them. The third is being ecologically relevant, meaning that I am not going to raise a self-entitled child
Yeah.
or an undisciplined child. I am going to have a child who is able to say, yes, my needs, my wants are this, but I also recognize and respect the needs and wants of others. And they're able to imbibe those three elements effectively in their lifestyle. But what we have is either we are high on one and pretty low on others. So we have a lot more youths who are struggling to even understand what their own needs are, much less identify the needs of others and how they can help in that space. So your parents' voice do not need to be your voice, right? But they can be a guide into helping you to recognize the things you can do differently and better. And I think the last one I found is, okay, the last two things are apologies and perfection. Apology is pretty hard. None of us. How many times did you have parents who said, hey, I'm sorry for doing this. I'm sorry that this happened. Well, maybe if you are lucky, they will most likely buy you your favorite or make your favorite soup just to apologize after discovering that okay, you are not the one that took the sweet on the table. Or they would buy your favorite clothes after discovering that, okay, well, it was your sibling that started this and it was not you. But to say those words of apology, wow, it is pretty difficult. But you see, apology is in the sense of, number one, acknowledging that you're human. Number two, recognizing that there is space for repair. And repair is a very deep thing. Repair is providing an opportunity for that child to also see that you are human and that you're doing your best. I love this quote or this exchange by a mother and a son that says, the mother apologizes and says, I'm sorry for doing this. And then the child says, oh, it's okay. I'm learning to be a child and you're also learning to be a parent. Because we are learning, but we come from a generation of people who tell us that I'm the parent, you are the child. Whatever I say, And that is where perfection comes in, isn't it? So they won't even acknowledge when they have made an error. If you go to your parents today and tell them that, mommy, remember when I was 12 and you did this, as a result of this, they probably look at you like, so are you not an adult now? Like, maybe your life has been lived. So deal with it, right? It is very few parents that will come back and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry for." And this is even when the pain is really deep, and you know that the friction in the relationship is really high. So we need to do better in those respects of recognizing that even the apologies that we didn't receive, we need to say it to ourselves. This is what we call the healing the inner child. You need to apologize to your inner child on behalf of your parents that, they shouldn't have done this to you. They shouldn't have exposed you to this, or they should have done better in this respect. And this is kudos to knowing that, yes, they did the best that they could. However, it doesn't mean that best is what you're deserving of. You could have deserved better as well. And that is okay for you to acknowledge as well. So, in respect to the rate, I think that is what I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much, Coach Shamina. Yeah. That was well put together. And our parents. Okay, somebody's already giving you a wonderful clap already. That's beautiful. We can also use the chat box as well to just um put our thoughts together based on what she has said. And if you have questions too, we can put our questions down. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ma, for that. I know that do I want to use the word that our parents did a whole lot based on what they knew as at that time. So for instance, for a very long time, I resented my mom because I felt she didn't do well enough in a particular area.
Hmm.
However, when I became a parent myself, I asked myself, well, the first question I asked myself was, who even taught me how to parent? That's the first question I asked myself. And
Yeah.
that question goes for all of us too. Somehow, we just had a script that says, oh, go to nursery school, primary school, university, get married. And somehow, try and error continues. So we just keep it going. Oh, we saw this person doing it this way. We grew up with corporal punishments. And at a point, I saw someone in my space wanting to do it to my children, because that was what we were used to at that point in time. Yeah, but like I started my story with my mom. I forgave her when I knew better because I knew that it was what she had access to. We had the conversation after a while, and I just had to move on because it was not our fault. But somehow, those experiences, whether it's their fault or not, it shapes us and it
Yeah.
helps, it puts those baggages in our bag, or it makes up who we eventually are, consciously or unconsciously. And I like the fact that you said that we have to be intentional about not parenting the same way our parents parented us. I hope that is well put together. So I want to ask a second question, Ma. And the second or third question, I think is the second question, that what are the signs
But
that a parent may be projecting their past onto their children? And how can parents know? I know we did an assessment earlier on. So some people that came up on board early enough were able to take the assessment. So how do you know that somehow, consciously or unconsciously, I'm projecting my past experiences onto my children? Thank you, Ma.
I think the most definitive way, thank you so much, Subal, for that question. I think the most definitive way, really, that we can know is what is our parental stress threshold. I particularly have an assessment that helps parents to understand their parental stress in the index. Because I'm sitting down on a chair, the chair is feeling stress. It is natural, but it is built to carry my weight. You're sitting down on a chair, it is built to carry your weight. If at any point in time we both sit on our chairs and then the seat moves or shakes or it's unable to carry that weight anymore, then the threshold has been crossed. We begin to lose. A lot of parents are in that state where every slight developmental behavioral challenge that a child does begins to become a stressful event, a super stressful event. And we begin to become irritable. We complain a lot about our children. We complain to our spouse. We complain to their siblings. We complain to their teachers. We will complain to their aunties and their uncles and their cousins because we are saying to ourselves, oh, I want this child to be better. Oh, I want this child not to turn out, worse than I am. I want this child to fill in the gaps. Apart from irritability, is also that you carry this fear of who your child is becoming. So the world we know is on a global landscape. We hear a lot, we see a lot. 1 minute, your PTA is giving you insight into one thing that one student did in your child's school. And you're putting your child under your armpit and saying, oh, yeah, come here, tell me, what parts did you take in this place? And the child is looking at you like, from where to where? This is not my story. How come you are feeling this way? So we are already on edge. It's like sitting on a gunpowder and expecting it to explode at any time. This is a clear indication, really, that there is emotional baggage. There are unresolved issues. But apart from the things that we do as parents, is also the things that we refuse to do, such as the ability to emotionally recognize our children's emotional needs. They're kind of emotionally attached to them. So I'll say to parents, I know that there's nobody here who doesn't love their child. There is no one here that will say, you know what, Yoruba will say, your child cannot be that bad that you insist that the lion should take it as its meal. But it is also knowing that there are unconscious ways that will allow your child to be predators. When you do not provide an emotional connection, particularly when they begin to get into that adolescent stage, where you can immediately begin to know that, okay, you are not the only butterfly in their garden anymore as a parent. They have peers, they have friends, they have even role models, influencers that they are looking up to. You are no longer the only voice of reason or the reason that they listen to. But you see, if that emotional connection is missing, then you do not have a say in how they turn out. The only thing you can do is to be afraid of how they turn out, right? The way to recognize that your baggage is there is that you ask yourself, what kind of relationship did I have with my parents? Was it a parent-child fearful relationship? Or was it a parent-child respectful relationship? But perhaps even the third, was it a parent-child connective relationship? We know that the fearful relationship would only get you so far. There are some things we did in our adolescence that till dates, we dare not go back to our parents and say, mommy, I did this or I did, this happened. We would never. And there are some things that will happen in our children's lives that we may never have that opportunity to even know. Unless we are in that third level of a connective relationship where A, they know they can trust us. B, they know that you can receive and accept them wholly, that you know who they are. And from all indications, at the end of the day, even when they make mistakes, they can come back and say, mommy or daddy, and something happened. I made this error. Please, can you help me? And instead of losing your top or flipping your lid, as we would say in psychology, you listen, you accept that behavioral challenges would happen in every child's life. They would test boundaries, they will experiment, they would explore. Peers will become more to them than parents. But they would always have a home to come back to and say, this is who knows me, this is who can help me in this case. Because if you didn't have that, it is pretty difficult for you to just engineer it out of the blues. You can love your children to death, but you will be the death of them because you are not paying attention to the very thing that they need. You are not noticing how their growth, their personality, their love language, their connection requirements is shifting across their ages. You just know that this child is my age. And so long as that child has suckled my breast, and in the case of the mother, or so long as I paid that child's school fees, that child must respect me. They would respect you, but would they connect with you? It's up to you. That's my answer.
Hmm. Hmm. Coach Amina, you're on fire. Oh. As in, you are really, really on fire. And as you were talking, it resonated with me a whole lot. First and foremost, because I have had access to mostly teenagers for more than close to 2 decades. And because I give them this space where I listen, they get to tell me a whole lot. And when I am opportune to talk to parents, I say that if some parents get to hear what their children have done,
Um,
at that point, people might just maybe go over from here and meet the angel at the borderline, you know. And in addition to what I just said, there was a friend of mine last week or so that reached out to me. She also has teenagers. She said, my teenagers have stopped talking to me. And I laughed because mostly I'm not a very serious person. And she asked me, why am I laughing? I said, if they are not talking to you, they are talking to somebody. It's either they are talking to another trusted adult or they are talking to their peers or they are talking to the internet or social media. The
mm,
problem is any of this might be dangerous because they might not share the same value with you. And another thing why teenagers mostly stop talking is when you judge them, they perceive that you are judging and you are not listening. Or when anything happen, you overreact. Or when anything happen, you start that long, boring conversation they don't want to hear. I am goofed. I have goofed. I want that safe space where no matter how much judgment I get from everywhere, I can still come home to say, oh, this place is safe for me. And I
yeah.
also like one of the other things that you said about the relationship between the parent child. That is it, parent child fearful relationship. That's what most of us had in our generation. I don't know about you. No, did I have fearful? No, I think I had respectful. I was in between fearful and respectful because I was generally a gentle, quiet child. But where I think the best place is parent-child connective relationship, where your child can connect with you. And I also like the fact, Coach Amina, that you said it gets to a point where it flips. You are no
Yeah.
longer as important as you used to be when they were far younger. Finally, Coach Amina, so that you know that I'm listening very well. And I'm very sure the people on the call are listening too. Knowing that we are not perfect and they are not perfect, they would experience some of those try and error,
Mhm.
those behavioral challenges at some points. For me, like I said, I used to be a coach and mentor until my children started turning to teenagers. It was a different ball game. There's that feeling of I've got this, I've got this, only
Mhm.
for them to, cross some hurdles here and there. And you know that, you have got this, but you just have to
Yeah.
cross every hurdle, every step of the way. Thank you very much. Our participant, please use the chat box for any questions, any concerns. Um, just use the chat box. So we'll go to the third question. And it says, so this time around, you are going to share. This is my best part. I like story. And I'm very sure a lot of us like stories. So I want you to share personal or professional experiences with us. Um, Now, something that we can relate to. Interestingly, almost all of us here are Nigerians, even though some of us are joining from far and wide. You know, share personal experiences with us um, on how we can first and foremost access. We did an assessment earlier on,
Yeah.
but I know we have more detailed. You mentioned the parenting stress assessment. We have a whole lot, so how can we see, let me take my breath. So how can what experiences do you have to tell us that, okay, with this assessment, you can know better, it can be clearer, then you can heal, you can unpack some of these baggages. I hope my question is clear enough. All right, over
Yeah,
to you.
I think I'll take it one after the other. The first being the story part, like you said, what professional or personal story. A bit of personal story. So when my daughter was born, I went into postpartum depression. At the time, I didn't know, even though I was a professional, I really didn't, you would know that something has happened, but you may not be able to tell until you see a professional. So, I had postpartum depression, and I was always in this kind of tiff, like, pretty overprotective, constantly in her space, and I wasn't healing emotionally myself. And by the time I went into therapy myself, so your therapy has a therapy, your therapist has a therapy. By the time I went into therapy myself, I began to unpack some of my own journey from my own childhood and recognize that one of the fears that I carried that actually instigated my PPD was actually because I was also scared that this is a human being. Your child is not a subhuman. It is not how they will say, your flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone. This is a fully formed human being that would grow into their faculties. And I was perplexed, in spite of all my education, as to how do I even approach this parenting without messing this child up? And I had to go back into my own journey, recognizing that some of the things that I dealt with was perfectionism. I expected myself to be perfect. It was like, okay, so now the child is here. Be the perfect person that is always attentive. With that 247, I let my job go. I let myself go. My emotions were all over the place. It was all about my daughter, my daughter, my daughter, my daughter. And I was really reeling from trying to be perfect. And it was because, again, in my childhood, one of the things that I struggled with was that I came from a single parent household. And for all intents and purposes, I struggled with that for the better part of my young to adult life. And it was something that I had never really acknowledged up until that point that I also became a parent. And for some of us, it is that way. It is something, maybe death in the family, maybe domestic violence, maybe sexual abuse or assault, or witnessing war or civil unrest or something, or the militia, or even being discriminated against or experiencing poverty, right? Something somewhere may have happened and you don't know that you have carried the meanings that you've taken from those experiences into your journey as an adult, and of course into your parenting. So I had to go into therapy to unpack all those and then discover that, oh wow, so this is why I was constantly, my daughter cried. So I was never a heavy sleeper, but it was worse by the time I became a parent. Like if I hear I'm awake and I'm awake with apprehension, what's happening? What do you need? How can I help? Kind of like in her space constantly. And you can imagine if a child had to grow up under that helicopter parenting style, it would diminish their self-esteem, it would diminish their sense of self. They would lose the true concept of their self. So by the time I had gone into therapy and came back, I now began to see that my child is outside of me, not just because I gave birth to her that I had to, like, an unseen umbilical cord was still existing. I had to really cut that off and live easily. So perfectionism was one of the things that I had to let go personally. Professionally, I've also seen parents who are struggling with um, the low self-esteem that they grew up with in their childhood. The fact that at one point or the other you were questioned for your competency. Perhaps you came second and your parents asked you, so is that the best you can do? Like the person that came first had two heads, or you were never good in debate or maths or anything like that, and they were constantly comparing you to a sibling or to a friend or to a neighbor, or perhaps it was even a religious experience where you were unconsciously religiously abused, and it was almost as if you never know God and you were shamed for your lack of relationship with God yet, even though you're still going into that concept. So for some of us, those were some of the things that I've seen in my own practice, and I've had to work with parents on. I had this, but I've had cases where parents now come face to face with their younger self, kind of like having a discussion with their 5-year-old, 10-year-old self, and really saying, you know what, you are enough, you are worthy, you are acceptable, you are deserving of love, you're deserving of peace, you're deserving of having two parents who unconditionally love you and who are able to guide you and who are able to help you even when you make a mistake. And by the time they are able to heal their inner child, they come back and they say, now I can see my daughter or my son as a human being who is blossom. That is a mixture of being flawed and awesome. Your children, as every human being, are imperfect. And we have to make space for that imperfection. And we have to recognize that our job as parents is not to raise happy children. Our job, again, is to raise well adjusted, emotionally stable, ecologically relevant individuals. So that's the first one. Now, the other part is this, the assessment. I do not think any therapist or coach worth their salt help you unpack where you are in your journey without an assessment. The assessments from understanding your own personality and your child's personality, from understanding your child's emotional needs, such as their love language and attachment styles, to your own attachment strength, and recognizing their compulsivity identifier, and so many things like that, including self-esteem, as just the bare minimum of really understanding what journey brought you to this parenting. How have you parented so far? Now, without this, all we'll be doing is just asking, okay, so tell me about yourself. Like you're in an interview for money laundering or something. We need to know your story. But the thing about this is, you may not even know your story yet until you take the assessment. You may not know what is relevant in your story. You can only tell me what is hurtful, or you can tell Super O what is wrong right now. You may not recognize what has shifted in the past. The assessment that we have, that Super O has carefully crafted, is designed to actually help you understand those things that have shifted in the past and how they are now currently running your present and perhaps the future of your children as well.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ma. In the spirit of sharing story, I think I will also share mine. For a very long time, uh, okay, so let me put it this way. I my daughter, my first daughter, for a very long time, I realized that she did not connect with me, and I tried everything that I needed to do as a mom. I was present, but still, I realized that she did not connect with me as she was supposed to. You know, there was that void. I just didn't understand why, you know, and we kept at it for a long time until I also took these assessments and saw a therapist. I know we are not used to, I think in Nigeria, we are more reactive than proactive. You know, it's when things go south. That is when we are now running eta scatter. So I saw the therapist too, and I had to go through the assessment too, and we had our sessions. And there and then, when we started unpacking, I realized that I had when I didn't want to. So somehow, unconsciously, I resented her. Unconsciously. She came earlier. So when my firstborn was 6 months old, that was when I got pregnant of her. So I was practically hiding. I didn't want anybody to see that was oh God. Even a lady came around to talk to me. I didn't want to. I ghosted everyone. So once I go to the office, I just come back home. I don't want to use the word depressed, but I shut down on myself practically. And until I went through the series of the therapy slash the assessment and all of that, it was then I broke that unconscious resentment. And interestingly, after I had all of those sessions, we never had the conversation. I didn't have my conversation with my daughter. And she came around herself. Before she goes to school, she will hug me severally. So in my head, I'm like, oh, where is this coming from? It dawned on me that unconsciously, I had carried that emotional baggage until I got free. And the spiral effect showed in not only her but every other person. So just to share with us why we might need to take the assessment. Thank you very much, Ma, for sharing. There's a question in the chat box, and it's
Yeah.
question time now. I'm done with my own question. I've tried. I've shared plenty story and question. So it's our time to share our story or ask our questions. But I have one here that says, is it possible to pass on to our children this emotional baggage? If yes, how can the parents help the children already inflicted with the baggage to heal after the parent has gone through therapy and now in a better place? I hope I read the question well.
Okay. Well, to answer the first part of the question is passing on the emotional baggage. Yes, in a subtle way, we project it first, and then they begin to. Um, it's it's like being in a vortex of plenty emotions without knowing what is going on, and then it shows up. And just the same way you, as an adult, also perhaps also had the same emotional baggage your parents had unconsciously. So yes, in a way, it is possible, but not in a definitive sense. Your own emotional baggage may be different from your child's emotional baggage, but the concept is passed, or the context of it is passed across. Now, if you ask how can parents help the children inflicted with the baggage to heal after the parent has gone through therapy, I think one of the first things, if you've gone through therapy, is to number one, if the child is in an age where you can apologize, please apologize. And I mean having a verbal discussion of saying, so this is what has happened. I noticed that I used to do this, and this. It was because of A, B, and C. Now I'm committing to doing X, Y, Z. However, I need you to forgive me. And child is probably looking at you like, okay, mom, are you okay? Like, what's going on? As some adolescents would most likely do. But you're apologizing not for them to forgive you. You're apologizing for them to realize that that was not the way to have been parented in the first instance. And it may take a while for them to recognize this. It may even take a while for you to even get better at parenting more effectively. But you see that commitment that you put to it makes you accountable to them, such that when you miss it, they can say, mommy, maybe you said you're going to do this. Or daddy, after all, you're not going to apologize and say, and then you go back to the drawing board and say, yes, I know I committed to doing this. And I'll give you an example. So my personality is one that is um, very finicky and very peculiar, time conscious, constantly on, keeping myself into details. Of course, this personality was also trauma formed based on my own past. So, now I have a daughter who, God bless her soul, very, very easygoing, very creative, very jolly. She has no concept of time. See how our personalities will clash, like on a scale of 1 to 10, perhaps on a 9 on a daily basis, right? So I'm into get things done, get them done right. She's into can we just have fun while we're doing this thing? Can we just take life easy and all that? So by the time I went to the therapy and did my own thing, and I realized that, okay, so this is who this girl is. I had to have that conversation with her. And now she comes to me and says, mommy, I'm not like you, and I'm never going to be like you. But you promise that you are going to, and I really would say, okay, I'm sorry, I promise that I'm going to do this. But you need to meet me halfway. I need this done this way so we have that conversation, and those conversations help us connect more. And it is in those conversations that she also recognizes that I am human. I am prone to flaw. So these days when I apologize, she just says, it's okay. I know you're learning, right? And that goes on and on between us. But if I just come back from there and I say, so the past is past, let it be, and I have no accountability process, I can easily go back into default mode, because default mode is where my pain resides. Default mode is where I'm blind to who she is and I'm living my life just because it is easy for me. And this is how sometimes parents unconsciously change their child's personality. And by the time you change that child's personality, they now grow up uncomfortable in their own self. They now have low self esteem. And by having low self esteem, or even extremely trauma informed high esteem, that they become entitled and indisciplined. And then you now begin to come to people like Superwoman and ask for help. But before you get to that space, these are some of the things that you can do. Have a conversation with them.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Ma. Thank you so,
Yeah.
so much. Do we have any other person on the call that wants to ask a question? Any questions? Oh, okay. So it seems like we really don't have any other question for today. All right. So thank you very much, Ma, for sharing. Thank you so much for your time. And
So,
um, we have 19 to 20 participants on the call today. And we have a choice to make. Is either we go with this great information and nothing changes, or we go with the information and do something differently. Yeah, by taking the assessment first. And in April, before I forget, in April, there's going to be a program for parents and their children. So the title of the program will be Ignite Emotional Resilience in the Tech-Savvy Generation. Ignite emotional resilience. I'm sure we know. Somehow, um, it looks like we are more resilient than they are. Because any small thing, you just see them, they'll tell you, I'm depressed. Mental health is now the one of the most common words now. Yes, ignite emotional resilience in the tech-savvy generation. Um, I think most of us on the call are elites. Let me use the word elites. So what that means is before A, your child gets this. Before B, your child gets it. Before your child says he or she gets this. And somehow it just makes them not build that emotional resilience. So any small trip like this, they go off. Recently, a teenager called me to say is depressed. That those are the two most common words. I'm depressed. And I asked, okay, why are you depressed? He failed jam 3 times. So, so He's tired of this word. I said, okay, let's take it one step at a time, you know. So we are where we are right now, and it is important for us to also build the next generation that God will be proud of, you know. And what can we do differently? Like I mentioned, let your child participate in this program. Um, Whether you like it or not, when they get to a certain stage, you would go down the ladder. Some other things will take priority than you are. Even though your space is safe, you know, they still need some other, and that is why sometimes, because they don't want to disappoint you, they will prefer to tell the story to an auntie than to tell the story to you. And you're wondering that, am I not your alpha and omega? No, the truth is that you have gone down the ladder. So please, dear parents, let's do what we need to do. Um, Even not only for them, um, for ourselves, so that we can live a happy and fulfilled life. Some of us took the self-assessment earlier on, and we realized that we had more than 5 yeses, which shows that we have emotional baggages. But outside that, we have more in-depth assessments that will help you discover your parenting strengths, the blind spots. Will help you. Your child will give you report card the same way they get report card from school, and the table will turn. Maybe they're always collecting. You were always taking first when you were young. Let's see what position you will take this time around with your parenting scorecard. Then we have self-esteem tests. A lot of teenagers in this generation are struggling with self-esteem. I can tell you that for free. I talk to loads and loads of them every day, and their self-esteem is, and that is why a whole lot of mess that you don't know about is happening. Another is a love language. If I ask us on this call now, what is your love language? Do you know it? You cannot give what you don't have. That is just the truth. So, and a lot of times we use our own love language on others. I have a friend on the call now. She's from South Korea. And I used to tease her sometimes to say, oh, if I start speaking, or if she starts speaking South Korean to me, I cannot hear anything. No matter how much she says, I will not understand because I'm Yoruba and that is what I understand, Yoruba and English. So please, we have wounds. Some of us have wounds, inner child wounds, which is part of what Coach Amina mentioned. It's just like somebody that has a internal bleeding. You know, you might not know until you go to the lab or you go to the hospital. You cannot go to the pharmacist and say, I think no. So please and please and please, dear parents, let's do what we need to do. And these assessments are affordable. They are things that you will thank us later for taking it. Sometimes you just realize that, oh, so let me quickly give this example. If I can go to the hospital now and say, oh, I have headache. You know, if they don't run an assessment, if I just go to the pharmacist and I don't run an assessment, it might be that I just need glasses. But the pharmacist can say, okay, take paracetamol. If he asks me to take paracetamol, I will take the paracetamol, and after a while, I will start feeling the headache again because I did not cure the main issue, which is the eyes. So please and please and please, reach out to me. There is a discount, 50% discount for the assessment till Monday, no, Sunday. That's Sunday, 12 Oru. That's Monday, 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. If you don't take it, no problem. It's okay. I'll be here at your beck and call. We are people of faith, and I know that we are good at praying. And yes, either Christians or Muslim or traditional worshippers, we are good at praying. But one of the things the Bible says is watch and pray. It has gone past just praying. Let's watch and pray. So, um, in the absence of any question, okay, one person is just trying to come in. In the absence of any question, And I would want to thank everyone that has participated in this series. It's actually a series that we started last week. So it's supposed to be three guest speakers for this month. Last week we did breaking free from the guilt of womanhood. This week we are talking about unpacking emotional baggages. Then next week, just watch out for another interesting topic that we are going to be sharing next week. So thank you very much for coming on board. Thank you everyone for
So
joining.
if you wear something
Um,
when you know you have somebody like Dara, eh?
okay, so
You
thank you everyone for joining. I will share the link with us. um Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or any concerns at any point in time. Thank you once again, everyone. Hope to see you join again next week by God's grace. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Evening. Some people are in evening, truthfully. Evening, afternoon, morning. Yeah. Bye, everyone.